I found the boarding passes in the laundry. 2 tickets to Maui, first class, booked with the miles I'd saved for 15 years. My name wasn't on either one. Hers was. So was his. The departure date was 3 days out, and when I checked our credit card statement that night, I saw she'd already charged a beachfront suite, couples massage, and a sunset dinner cruise. My hands went numb holding that receipt. Then I did what any man with a pharmacy background and too much quiet rage would do. I opened my laptop and started planning. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is David Chen, and I've spent the last 23 years doing things the right way. I own a small independent pharmacy in Riverside, California, the kind with creaky floors and customers who know my kids' names. I dispense medications, answer questions about insurance copays, and keep crackers behind the counter for diabetics who forget to eat. It's not glamorous. It pays the bills. More importantly, it taught me to read labels, follow protocols, and never skip the fine print. That attention to detail saved my life once when a doctor's handwriting nearly killed a patient. It was about to save my marriage, or end it, depending on how you define salvation. The boarding passes were cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind airlines print for premium cabins. They'd been folded in the pocket of Linda's yoga pants, which she'd tossed in the hamper without checking. I pulled them out with a tissue stuck to the paper, and for a stupid second I thought maybe she'd planned a surprise for us. Anniversary trip, random romantic gesture, the kind of thing that happens in commercials but not in real marriages that run on coffee and duty. Then I saw the names. Linda Chen and Marcus Webb. Departure from LAX, September 14th, return September 21st. 7 days. The kind of trip you don't take with a coworker or a gym buddy. My throat closed up the way it does when you swallow wrong. I sat on the edge of the washing machine and read those names over and over like a prescription I couldn't fill. Marcus Webb. I knew that name. He managed the fitness center where Linda had been going every morning for the past 8 months. She'd lost 20 pounds, started wearing perfume that smelled like ambition, and stopped asking me how my day went. I told myself it was a midlife phase, that women in their 40s rewrite themselves and men just hang on. I told myself that twice a week, usually while folding her new athletic wear that cost more than my cholesterol medication. The boarding passes had a confirmation code. I logged into the airline's website using the password she'd been using since college, the one she thought I didn't know. Our mileage account, the one we'd been building since our honeymoon in Cancun, showed a redemption for 2 first-class tickets. 140,000 miles. Gone. I'd earned most of those miles flying to pharmaceutical conferences in Cleveland and Orlando, sitting in middle seats, eating pretzels that tasted like cardboard. I thought we were saving them for something big. Turns out we were. Just not together. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I printed the boarding passes, the hotel confirmation, and the receipt for a couple's snorkeling excursion. Then I went downstairs and made dinner like a man who wasn't holding evidence of his own irrelevance. Linda came home at 7, hair still damp from the shower at the gym, skin glowing in that way that happens when someone's paying attention to you. She kissed my cheek, grabbed a plate, and asked if I'd picked up her prescription refill. I had. I always did. That's what men like me do. We pick things up, drop things off, keep systems running while the people we love plot vacations with someone who makes them laugh at inside jokes we'll never understand. We ate pasta in front of the television. She scrolled her phone. I watched her fingers move and wondered how long she'd been texting him, how many messages got deleted before I saw the screen, how many smiles I'd missed because I was too busy being reliable. When she went upstairs to pack for what she'd told me was a wellness retreat in Sedona, I stayed on the couch and opened my laptop. Airline policies are like drug interactions. If you know how to read them, you can find leverage. I navigated to the reservation using the confirmation code, clicked through passenger details, scanned the terms. There it was, buried in paragraph 6. primary account holder has authority to modify or cancel reservations booked with loyalty points. I was the primary account holder. The mouse hovered over the cancel button. One click and their romantic getaway turns into a very expensive conversation at the gate. But I didn't click. Not yet. Because canceling the flight was just logistics. What I needed was proof, a plan, and a reason to burn it all down in public. Men my age are supposed to be reasonable. We're supposed to talk things out, go to therapy, consider the children even when the children are grown and gone. My son was in graduate school in Chicago. My daughter taught English in South Korea. They called on Sundays, sent photos of their lives, and believed their parents were fine because we never told them otherwise. I didn't want to be the dad who shattered that. But I also didn't want to be the husband who pretended boarding passes were bookmarks. I needed to know how deep this went, and I needed someone I could trust to help me find out. I called my brother Alan at 10 that night, after Linda had gone to bed with her phone face down on the nightstand. Alan's a divorce attorney in San Diego, the kind who sees betrayal like dentists see cavities, common and fixable with the right tools. He answered on the second ring. "You sound weird," he said. I told him everything. The boarding passes, the miles, Marcus Webb, the 7 days she thought she was stealing. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he exhaled like a man who'd heard this story in 15 different variations. "You want to cancel the flight," he said. It wasn't a question. "I do," I admitted. "But I want more than that. I want her to feel what I felt when I found those passes." Alan went quiet for a beat. Then he said something that changed the shape of my anger into something sharper. "Don't just cancel the tickets, Dave. Let them get to the gate. Let them think they're safe. Then pull the floor out." I felt my pulse kick. "How?" He talked me through it like a coach drawing plays. "Wait until they're at the airport. Wait until they've checked bags, cleared security, maybe even boarded. Then cancel. Strand them in public. Film the aftermath if you're brave. Make it so loud they can't rewrite the narrative." It was cruel. It was also fair. I thought about all the quiet ways Linda had been erasing me. The late gym sessions, the new wardrobe. The laughter I heard through the bathroom door when she thought I was asleep. She'd planned this trip like a military operation, covering her tracks with fake wellness retreats and fictional friends. She'd spent years of my work, my miles, my middle seats in Orlando, on a man who probably didn't know how to check a blood pressure cuff. If I was going to end this, I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd gambled and lost. "Okay," I told Alan. "Walk me through it." Over the next 2 days, I became a different kind of pharmacist. Instead of counting pills, I counted details. I tracked Linda's movements like a clinical trial. She went to the gym every morning at 6. She came home by 8, showered, then spent an hour on her laptop in the guest room she'd started calling her office. I checked the browser history on the shared desktop. She'd searched for best beaches in Maui, what to pack for a romantic trip, and how to cover a tan line. That last one made me laugh in a way that had no humor in it. I also found messages. Not on her phone, which she guarded like nuclear codes, but on the tablet she used for recipes and YouTube videos. She'd forgotten to log out of a messaging app one didn't even know existed. The thread with Marcus stretched back 6 months. Flirty at first, then explicit, then logistical. They'd been planning this trip since April, mapping it around my pharmacy conference schedule, her fake wellness retreat, and a window where our kids wouldn't call. She'd told him I was boring, predictable, too tired to care. He'd told her she deserved passion, adventure, a man who saw her. I read every message twice. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I needed the anger to harden into something I could use. Alan checked in daily. "You holding up?" he'd text. I'd reply with facts. Hotel reservation confirmed. Rental car booked. She bought new swimsuits. He'd send back a thumbs up and a reminder. "Wait for the gate, Dave. Let them taste it first." The night before their flight, Linda packed in the bedroom while I pretended to read downstairs. She was humming, actually humming, the way people do when they think they've gotten away with something. I heard the zipper on her suitcase, the click of her heels in the hallway, the little sigh of relief she let out when she thought I wasn't listening. She came downstairs in leggings and oversized sweater, hair pulled back, face fresh. She looked happy. I haven't seen her look happy in years, not around me. I'm leaving early tomorrow, she said, setting her bag by the door. Yoga retreat starts at noon, so I'll be gone before you wake up. I nodded, didn't look up from my book. Drive safe. She leaned down and kissed the top of my head like I was a child, or a pet. Thanks for understanding, Dave. You're the best. I waited until her footsteps faded upstairs, then I opened my laptop and canceled the tickets. The screen asked if I was sure. I clicked yes. A confirmation email hit my inbox 3 seconds later. Reservation canceled. Miles refunded. I forwarded it to Alan with no message. He replied immediately. Game on. The alarm went off at 4 in the morning. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I heard Linda moving around upstairs, quick and quiet, trying not to wake me. I stayed in bed, eyes closed, listening to her gather her things. The front door opened and closed. Her car started. Tires rolled down the driveway. I counted to 60, then got up and checked the security camera footage on my phone. She'd loaded her suitcase, checked her face in the rearview mirror, and smiled at herself. Then she drove off toward a flight that didn't exist anymore. I made coffee. I showered. I put on the khakis and polo shirt I wear to work every day and tried to feel something other than cold. By 6, I was parked 3 rows back from the departures curb at LAX, engine off, watching the entrance. Alan had flown up from San Diego and was sitting in a rental car near the Alaska Airlines gates inside. He'd texted me his position. Ready when you are. Linda's car pulled up at 6:40. She stepped out in activewear that cost more than my winter coat, rolling a hard-shell suitcase I didn't recognize. Marcus met her at the curb. Tall, tanned, the kind of guy who wears sunglasses indoors and calls everyone bro. He kissed her, not a peck, and grabbed her bag. They walked inside together, his hand on the small of her back, her head tilted toward his shoulder. I took 3 photos. My hands didn't shake. I sent them to Alan. Eyes on. They checked in at the kiosk. I watched from behind a column near the coffee stand, ball cap low, sunglasses on. Linda was laughing at something Marcus said, her whole body angled toward him like he was the sun. They scanned their IDs, printed bag tags, and headed toward security. That's when I got the text from Alan. They just found out. I moved closer, staying out of sight, phone recording. Linda was at the gate agent's desk, confusion turning into panic. The agent was shaking her head, typing, shaking her head again. I'm sorry, the agent said, loud enough for me to hear. These reservations were canceled yesterday. There's nothing in the system. Linda's face went white. That's impossible, she said. I have the boarding passes. The agent looked at the printed passes, then back at the screen. The account holder canceled them. If you'd like to rebook, I can help, but it'll be out of pocket. Marcus stepped in, chest out, voice raised. This is unacceptable. We have a flight to catch. The agent stayed calm. Sir, the primary account holder has full authority over mileage bookings. There's nothing I can do. Linda pulled out her phone, hands shaking. She tried calling me. I let it ring. She tried again. I watched her face crumble as it went to voicemail. Marcus was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. Do you know how much we planned for this? The agent offered a tight smile. I understand, but without payment for new tickets, I can't reissue. Linda looked at Marcus. Her voice was small. Do you have a credit card? He hesitated. I'm maxed out. Her eyes widened. What? I thought we were splitting. He shrugged, suddenly less charming. You said you had it covered. That's when Linda understood. She wasn't just stranded. She was exposed. The man she'd gambled on couldn't even cover a flight. I stepped out from behind the column and walked toward them, phone still recording. Linda saw me first. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Marcus turned, sizing me up like we were in a parking lot instead of an airport terminal. David, Linda finally said. What are you doing here? I stopped 3 feet away, calm as a pharmacist reading a label. I canceled your flight. Her face went from white to red. You what? I held up my phone, showing her the confirmation email. Primary account holder writes. I used our miles for 15 years of conferences. You used them for him. I nodded toward Marcus, who looked like he wanted to vanish. Linda's voice cracked. You had no right. I smiled, and it wasn't kind. I had every right. Those were my miles, my account, my marriage you were planning to spend in Maui. Marcus stepped forward, trying to reclaim some swagger. Look man, this is between you and her. I met his eyes. No, Marcus. This is between me, her, and 15 years of first-class tickets I'll never let her forget. Linda grabbed my arm. People are watching, she hissed. I looked around. They were. Phones out, recording, whispering. Good, I said. Let them. I pulled my arm free and addressed the small crowd that had gathered. My wife booked a romantic trip with her gym trainer using miles I earned. I canceled it this morning. If anyone's looking for a cautionary tale about loyalty programs and bad decisions, here it is. Someone laughed. Someone else clapped. Linda's face went pale again, but this time with humiliation. Marcus backed toward the exit. I'm out of here. Linda grabbed his sleeve. Wait, where are you going? He shook her off. This is too much drama. I didn't sign up for this. And just like that, he left. Walked out of the terminal, out of her fantasy, out of the story she'd been writing. Linda stood there, suitcase at her feet, tears starting. David, please. I shook my head. I'm filing on Monday. My brother's already drafted the papers. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Linda, the hotel in Maui? I called them. Cancellation policy is 72 hours. You're eating that cost too. I walked out into the California sun, Alan waiting by the curb. He handed me a bottle of water and a grin. You good? I nodded. Better than I've been in years. We drove back to Riverside in silence. Not the bad kind. The kind that comes after you've said everything that needed saying. That afternoon, I changed the locks. Monday, I filed. Tuesday, I blocked her number. By Wednesday, the pharmacy felt lighter, like I'd swept out dust I didn't know was there. Customers asked where Linda was. I told them the truth. We separated. Most nodded like they'd seen it coming. One older woman, Mrs. Alvarez, who'd been getting her blood pressure meds from me for a decade, squeezed my hand. Good men don't deserve bad wives, she said. You'll be fine. I believed her. That weekend, I took myself to dinner. Not somewhere fancy. A taco truck near the river where the salsa's good and nobody asks questions. I sat on a picnic bench, watched the water, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Not happy yet, but free. And freedom, I was learning, is where you start rebuilding. Alan called while I was finishing my second taco. How you holding up? Better, I said. Good. Because I got the response from her attorney. She's contesting. Of course she is, I said. What's her angle? She's claiming emotional distress. Says you humiliated her in public. I laughed, and it felt good. She humiliated herself. I just bought a ticket to watch. Alan chuckled. That's the spirit. We'll handle it. And Dave, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. I wasn't sure about that yet. Right and satisfying aren't always the same. But I knew this. I wasn't the man folding laundry and pretending anymore. I was the man who read the fine print and used it. Over the next few months, the story leaked. Not from me, but from the people at the airport who'd filmed it. Someone posted the video online with the caption "Husband cancels cheating wife's vacation at the gate." It went viral. Millions of views. Comments ranged from savage to supportive. A few called me petty. Most called me a hero. I didn't feel like either. I felt like a man who'd finally stopped letting someone else write his story. The divorce moved slow, the way they do when one person wants to fight and the other just wants out. Linda tried to claim half the pharmacy. Alan shut that down with documentation showing I'd owned it before the marriage. She tried to claim the house. We split it. She tried to claim emotional damages. The judge laughed, literally laughed, and referenced the video. "Ma'am, you booked a vacation with another man using marital assets. I'm not awarding damages for consequences." The settlement came through in March. I kept the pharmacy, the house, and my dignity. She kept her car and whatever was left of her relationship with Marcus, which I heard lasted about 3 weeks after the airport. Turns out passion fades fast when there's no one else's money to spend it with. My kids called when they heard. Both of them, same day, within an hour of each other. "Dad, are you okay?" my daughter asked. "I'm good," I told her. "Better than I've been." My son was more direct. "Mom's an idiot." I didn't disagree. They flew home that summer, both of them, and we sat on the back patio drinking beer and talking about everything we'd avoided for years. They told me they'd known something was off. They told me they were proud I'd finally stood up. That word, proud, coming from my kids, meant more than any courtroom win. I started running in the mornings, something I hadn't done since my 20s. Not because I was trying to reinvent myself, but because I needed to prove my body still worked when I asked it to. I ran past the gym where Linda used to go, where Marcus probably still worked, and I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness. Just the rhythm of my feet and the burn in my lungs. The pharmacy became mine again. I rearranged the counter, updated the inventory system, started carrying products I actually believed in instead of ones Linda thought looked good on the shelves. Customers noticed. "You seem different," Mrs. Alvarez said one afternoon. "Lighter." I smiled. "I canceled some dead weight." She laughed, the kind that shakes your whole chest. "I like this version of you." So did I. That's the part they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't just break you. It gives you a chance to rebuild without the weight of someone else's expectations. A year after the airport, I got a message on social media from someone I didn't know. "Just wanted to say I saw your video. I was in a similar situation. Seeing you stand up gave me the courage to do the same. Thank you." I stared at that message for a long time. I hadn't set out to inspire anyone. I'd just been a man at the end of his rope who happened to know airline policy. But if my mess helped someone else clean theirs up, maybe it wasn't just petty revenge. Maybe it was a blueprint. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. I just closed the app, locked up the pharmacy, and drove home to a house that was finally, completely mine. The roses I'd planted that spring were blooming. I watered them, checked the leaves for pests, and felt the kind of peace that only comes when you've stopped pretending. Linda tried to reach out once, 6 months after the divorce finalized. An email. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I didn't open it. I archived it, the digital equivalent of putting something in a drawer you'll never open again. Alan asked if I was curious. "Not even a little," I said. Some conversations don't deserve a reply. I started dating again, nothing serious, just coffee with women who didn't need me to save them or fix them. It was strange at first, remembering how to talk about myself without apologizing for taking up space. But I got better at it. One woman, a teacher named Angela, asked me on our second date why I seemed so calm. I've already survived the worst, I told her. Everything else is just weather. She liked that. We're still seeing each other. No pressure, no promises, just two people who've been through things and came out wiser. The pharmacy hit a revenue milestone in December. Best year on record. I bought myself a new watch, nothing flashy, just something that kept time honestly. I wore it every day and thought about how much of my life I'd spent watching other people's clocks. Not anymore. These days, I measure time differently. Not in miles or minutes, but in moments that feel true. Morning coffee before the sun's up. A customer thanking me for catching a drug interaction their doctor missed. My daughter's voice on the phone, telling me about her life without asking if I'm okay first. My son sending a meme with no context and trusting I'll get the joke. These are the miles that matter. I didn't frame the boarding passes. I didn't keep the video. I didn't need trophies. The story lives in me, not as a wound, but as a scar that proves I survived. If you're going through something similar, here's what I learned. Don't wait for permission to protect yourself. Don't apologize for knowing your worth. And if someone books a vacation with your miles, cancel it at the gate. Not because it's kind. Because it's fair. I'm David Chen. I own a pharmacy in Riverside. I dispense medications, advice, and occasionally, justice. The roses are blooming. The shelves are stocked. And the only trips I'm planning are the ones I'll actually take. Subscribe if this story found you. Share it if you know someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the fine print isn't just for prescriptions. Sometimes it's for survival. The week after the airport incident, I learned something about small towns that nobody warns you about. News travels faster than medication through an 4-drip. By Tuesday, every regular at the pharmacy had heard some version of what happened. Mrs. Alvarez brought me homemade tamales. Mr. Richardson, who usually just grunted and grabbed his diabetes prescription, shook my hand like I'd won a war. Even the UPS driver gave me a knowing nod when he dropped off the weekly supply order. The attention made me uncomfortable at first. I'm not built for spotlight. I measure pills and check insurance codes. I wear the same 3 polo shirts on rotation and eat lunch at my desk. But there was something in the way people looked at me now. Not pity. Respect. Like I'd done something they'd all thought about but never had the spine to execute. Linda's friend Stephanie came in on Wednesday. She'd been part of the book club that I now realized had never actually read books. She approached the counter with her prescription and wouldn't meet my eyes. Her hand shook when she handed over her insurance card. I processed it without comment. When I handed back her medication, she finally spoke. I didn't know, David. About Marcus. About any of it. I gave her the same neutral smile I give everyone. That's between you and your conscience, Stephanie. She left quickly, and I went back to counting pills. Truth has a way of sorting people. Some lean in. Others scatter. I didn't have energy to chase the ones who scattered. Alan called that afternoon during my lunch break. I was eating a turkey sandwich in the back office, same as every Wednesday for the past decade. Linda used to make them for me. Now I made my own. Somehow they tasted better. You see the comments on the video? Alan asked. I hadn't looked in days. The initial wave of attention had been enough. Why should I? Some lawyer on TikTok did a breakdown. Called it a masterclass in leveraging terms of service. You're apparently a folk hero now. I laughed and nearly choked on my sandwich. I just canceled a flight. People are calling it poetic justice. One comment said you're the patron saint of scorned husbands. I set down my sandwich. That's ridiculous. Maybe, Alan said. But it's also true. You did what most people just fantasize about. You made the betrayal visible. The phrase stuck with me. Made the betrayal visible. That's exactly what it was. For years, Linda had operated in shadows. Late nights at the gym, phone calls taken in the garage, weekend errands that stretched into afternoons. I'd suspected, sure, but suspicion without proof just makes you the paranoid husband. The boarding passes had given me proof. The airport had given me a stage. Together, they'd turned a private hurt into a public reckoning. I didn't feel good about that exactly. But I didn't feel bad either. That evening, I drove past the gym where Marcus worked. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see if he was still there, still training middle-aged women with promises of transformation. The parking lot was half empty. Through the window, I could see him on the floor, demonstrating a lunge to a client who looked engaged and hopeful. He caught my eye for just a second. His smile faltered. Then he turned back to his client like I didn't exist. I kept driving. Revenge isn't a destination. It's a moment. And mine was already over. What came next was the boring part. Sorting assets, signing papers, dividing a life into columns labeled his and hers. Linda hired a lawyer from Los Angeles, someone flashy who charged by the syllable. Alan found it hilarious. She's burning money she doesn't have to fight a case she can't win. Why is she fighting at all? I asked. Because admitting defeat means admitting guilt. And Linda's never been good at that. He wasn't wrong. In 23 years, I'd never heard Linda apologize for anything significant. Small things, sure. Forgetting to buy milk, double booking dinner plans. But the big stuff, the things that actually mattered, she'd twist until somehow I was the one apologizing. I'd gotten good at it. Too good. That version of me felt like a stranger now. On Thursday, I received a legal notice. Linda was requesting spousal support. Temporary, her lawyer claimed, until she could get back on her feet. Alan read it over the phone and laughed so hard I had to hold the receiver away from my ear. She left you for a broke personal trainer and now wants you to fund her recovery. That takes guts. Or delusion, I offered. Probably both, he agreed. We'll file a response. Don't worry. I wasn't worried. Numbers don't lie, and the numbers showed Linda had been steadily employed as a real estate agent up until the month before she planned her Maui trip. She'd quit to focus on herself, she'd told me. I'd supported it, thinking she needed a break. Now I understood. She'd quit because she thought Marcus was her retirement plan. Turns out he couldn't even cover a rental car. The pharmacy became my refuge in a way it hadn't been before. I started staying later, reorganizing shelves that didn't need it, updating inventory logs that were already current. My assistant, a sharp woman in her 30s named Nicole, noticed. You're avoiding an empty house, she said one evening while we were closing up. I didn't deny it. It's quieter than I'm used to. She nodded, stacking prescription bags. My ex used to fill the space. With noise. TV, music, arguments. When he left, the silence was the hardest part. What helped? I asked. She locked the register and smiled. I bought a dog. I'd never been a dog person. Linda was allergic, or claimed to be. Another thing I'd accepted without questioning. But the idea stuck. That weekend, I drove to the county shelter. I told myself I was just looking. I walked out with a 3-year-old mutt named Roger. Part lab, part something else, all calm. He didn't jump or bark or demand anything. He just sat next to me in the car and watched the road like we'd been doing this for years. Roger turned out to be the best decision I'd made since canceling those tickets. He had a routine. Morning walk, breakfast, nap in the sun. Evening walk, dinner, sleep by the bed. He didn't care about my failed marriage or viral videos. He cared about consistency and treats. I could manage both. Mrs. Alvarez met Roger on his 3rd day. She was picking up her medication when he walked in with me. I'd tied him outside, but he'd looked so sad through the window that I brought him in. Pharmacy policy said no animals. I own the pharmacy. Policy changed. She's beautiful, Mrs. Alvarez said, scratching Roger behind the ears. He's a him, I corrected. She waved a hand. Beautiful doesn't need gender. She's right, you know. Roger became a fixture. Customers loved him. Kids asked to pet him. Older folks told me stories about their own dogs. He was better for business than any marketing campaign. More importantly, he was better for me. Coming home stopped feeling like a punishment. I'd open the door and Roger would be there, tail wagging, no judgment about where I'd been or why I was late. We'd walk the neighborhood, him sniffing every tree, me nodding at neighbors who'd stopped asking about Linda. One evening, a man about my age stopped me 3 blocks from home. "You're the guy from the video," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, waiting for whatever came next. My wife did something similar. Booked a trip with her boss using our joint account. I found out after they'd already left. "What did you do?" I asked. He shrugged, looking tired. "Nothing. Filed 6 months later. Stayed civil for the kids." He looked at Roger, then at me. "I wish I'd done what you did. Not for revenge. Just to make it real." I didn't know what to say to that. Roger saved me by pulling toward a bush. The man nodded and walked on. That interaction stayed with me. How many people were living in the space between suspicion and proof, too afraid to look because looking meant acting, and acting meant change? I'd been there. I'd lived there for months, maybe years, pretending I didn't see the signs because seeing them meant losing the life I'd built. The boarding passes had forced my hand. In a strange way, I was grateful. November came with cooler air and shorter days. The divorce proceedings dragged on, each motion more ridiculous than the last. Linda wanted the wedding china we'd received 23 years ago and never used. She wanted the patio furniture I'd assembled. She wanted half the value of Roger, which Alan called the dumbest claim he'd seen in a decade. "You can't split a dog," I told him. "She's not trying to split him. She's trying to hurt you. Let her try." The custody arrangement with Roger became a joke between us. Alan suggested I file a counter motion requesting visitation with her gym membership. I declined. Some battles aren't worth the ink. What became clear through all the legal noise was that Linda wasn't fighting for assets. She was fighting to not be the villain. Every motion, every claim, every delay was about rewriting the story. If she could drag things out, complicate the narrative, maybe people would forget the airport. Maybe she'd become the wronged wife instead of the caught one. I understood the strategy. I just didn't care. Facts are stubborn things. The video existed. The bank records existed. The testimony from the gate agent existed. No amount of legal maneuvering could erase what people had already seen. By December, Linda's lawyers started pushing for settlement. Alan called it a white flag wrapped in legalese. They know they can't win. They're trying to minimize damage. "What are they offering?" I asked. "She keeps the car in her retirement account. You keep the house, the pharmacy, and Roger. Even custody of the dog." I almost laughed. "That's not a settlement. That's what I already have." "Exactly," Alan said. "But if she agrees to it in writing, it ends. No more motions, no more court dates. You walk away clean." I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. "Do it." The papers were signed 2 days before Christmas. I spent the holiday with Roger, a good book, and takeout Chinese food. My kids called. Both of them sounded relieved. "You okay, Dad?" my daughter asked. "Better than okay," I told her honestly. "I'm free." She laughed, the kind that sounds like pride. "Good. You deserve that." My son sent a photo of himself holding a beer with the caption "Cheers to New Chapters." I sent back a photo of Roger wearing a ridiculous reindeer antler headband. He replied with 3 laughing emojis. These were my people now. Not the ones who'd looked the other way or enabled Linda's lies. The ones who showed up after the dust settled. The new year came with a clarity I hadn't expected. I started making plans. Real ones. Not Sunday dreams, but actual reservations and deposits. I booked a trip to Seattle in March. Just me and Roger. I'd found a dog-friendly hotel near the water and mapped out hiking trails. I bought a new camera, something I'd wanted for years but never justified. Linda used to roll her eyes at hobbies that didn't generate income. Now the only person I had to justify purchases to was myself, and I was lenient. The pharmacy continued to thrive. I hired a part-time tech, a college student named Brian who asked good questions and showed up on time. With his help, I started leaving at 5 instead of 7. I cooked actual meals instead of eating over the sink. I watched movies I wanted to see. I learned that freedom isn't loud. It's quiet. It's coming home to a dog and a clean counter and no one asking where you've been. In February, Angela and I went to dinner at a place she'd been wanting to try. It was one of those farm-to-table spots where the menu changes weekly and the waiters explain each dish like it's a TED Talk. Halfway through the meal, she asked me something no one else had. Do you regret it? The airport, I mean. Making it public. I thought about that. Really thought. The humiliation Linda felt. The viral attention. The way it had colored everything after. No, I said finally. I regret not seeing it sooner. I regret the years I spent making excuses. But the airport, canceling those tickets, that I'd do again. She nodded, satisfied. Good. People who cheat count on silence. You took that away from her. We finished our meal and walked to her car. She kissed me goodnight, nothing heavy, just a moment that felt honest. I drove home with the windows down, cold air clearing out the last bit of weight I'd been carrying. Roger met me at the door. We walked the block twice, him sniffing, me thinking about how different my life looked than it had a year ago. Better wasn't even the right word. Truer. That was it. My life felt true now. In March, I took that Seattle trip. Roger loved the ferry ride. I loved the coffee in the bookstores and the way nobody knew my story. I hiked trails that made my knees complain and took photos that would never be frame-worthy but mattered because I'd been there. On the last day, I sat by the water and called my kids. Both of them. Separate calls. I told them I loved them. I told them I was proud of the people they were becoming. I told them the divorce was final and I was doing fine. Better than fine. My daughter cried a little. My son made a joke to cover the fact that he was crying too. When I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in decades. The flight home was smooth. Roger slept under the seat in his carrier. I watched the clouds and thought about all the miles I'd earned over the years. Business trips, conferences, training sessions. I'd always seen them as a means to an end. Save the miles, take the big trip, make it worth something. I'd been so focused on the destination that I'd missed the point. The miles weren't a savings account. They were proof of work, of showing up, of doing the thing even when it wasn't glamorous. Linda had tried to spend them on a fantasy. I'd taken them back and used them for something real. When we landed, I collected Roger and walked through the terminal. I passed the Alaska Airlines gates where it had all gone down. A family was checking in, kids bouncing with excitement, parents looking exhausted and happy. I smiled. That used to be us. A long time ago. I didn't feel bitter about it. Just aware. Some things end. Some things should. The drive back to Riverside felt different. The freeway stretched out like a promise instead of a routine. I had a business that was mine. A house that was mine. A dog that was definitely mine. And a life that, for the first time in years, I was actually living instead of enduring. The pharmacy was closed when I got back, but I stopped by anyway. I unlocked the door and walked through the aisles, Roger trailing behind. This place had saved me. Not in a dramatic way. In the small, steady way that good work does. It gave me purpose when my marriage couldn't. It gave me structure when everything else was chaos. I locked up and drove home. That night, I made dinner. Pasta, nothing fancy. I poured a glass of wine and sat on the back patio even though it was chilly. Roger curled up at my feet. The stars were out. I thought about Linda, wherever she was. I didn't hate her. I didn't miss her either. She'd made choices that led her away from this life. I'd made choices that led me back to myself. In the end, we'd both gotten what we wanted. She got freedom from a boring marriage. I got freedom from a dishonest one. Spring arrived with wildflowers and longer daylight. The pharmacy got busy with allergy season. I hired another part-time tech. Business was good. Life was good. I started dating Angela more seriously. Not in a rush, just in a steady, adult way where we both knew what we wanted and weren't afraid to say it. She met Roger and declared him perfect. She met my kids over video calls and made them laugh. She didn't try to replace Linda. She didn't have to. She was her own person, and that was enough. One Saturday in April, we drove to the coast. Just a day trip. We walked on the beach, ate fish tacos, and watched the sunset without needing to fill the silence with conversation. On the drive home, she asked what I was thinking about. I told her the truth. I was thinking about how much time I wasted being afraid of change. She reached over and squeezed my hand. We all do that. The trick is recognizing when it's time to stop. I squeezed back. I think I've stopped. Good, she said. Because I really like this version of you. The funny thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just reveal the other person. It reveals you. I'd spent years thinking I was patient, loyal, steady. All good qualities until they become excuses for tolerating disrespect. The airport hadn't just exposed Linda. It had exposed the part of me that had been willing to look away, to smooth things over, to keep the peace at the cost of my own dignity. I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't be. Roger had taught me that coming home should feel good. Angela had taught me that relationships should be easy more often than they're hard. My kids had taught me that respect doesn't require perfection, just honesty. And the pharmacy, my steady, boring, reliable pharmacy, had taught me that showing up every day for something you believe in is its own kind of heroism. By summer, the video had faded from the internet's short memory. New scandals, new heroes, new villains. I was fine with that. I'd never wanted fame. I just wanted my wife to understand what she'd gambled. She did now. Everyone did. And that was enough. In July, my daughter came home for a week. We spent it doing normal things. Cooking, hiking with Roger, watching bad movies. On her last night, we sat on the patio with ice cream. She looked at me the way adult children do when they're trying to figure out if their parents are really okay. You seem different, Dad. Good different. I smiled. I feel different. She ate a spoonful of ice cream, thoughtful. Do you think you'll get married again? I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not against it. But I'm not chasing it either. She nodded. That's healthy. We sat in comfortable silence. Then she said something that hit deeper than I expected. I'm proud of you. For what? For not letting her make you small. For standing up. For not pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you, sweetheart. She leaned her head on my shoulder the way she used to when she was little. You taught me something, Dad. What's that? That love shouldn't cost you your dignity. I held her a little tighter. Remember that. She promised she would. When she flew back to Korea, I felt the usual sadness of a parent watching their kid leave. But underneath it was pride. She'd learned something from my mess. Maybe that made it worth it. August brought heat and the slow rhythm of a small town in summer. The pharmacy stayed busy enough. I took Wednesdays off, something I'd never done before. Roger and I would drive to different trails, explore new parks, just exist without a schedule. Angela joined us sometimes. Other times, I went alone. Both felt right. One Wednesday, I drove past the gym again. I don't know why I kept doing that. Maybe to remind myself that it was real, that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. The parking lot was full. Business as usual. Marcus was probably inside, training someone new, making promises about transformation. I hoped he'd learn something. I doubted it. People like that don't change. They just find new targets. I didn't waste energy being angry about it. Anger is expensive. It costs time and peace and the ability to enjoy a Wednesday afternoon with your dog. I wasn't paying that price anymore. In September, exactly 1 year after the airport, Alan called. "I've got something you'll appreciate." "What's that?" Marcus got fired. Apparently, another client's husband complained. No physical proof, but enough smoke that the gym let him go. I absorbed that. "How do you feel about it?" Alan asked. "Neutral," I said. That surprised me as much as it probably surprised him. A year ago, I would have celebrated. Now it just felt like the natural consequence of a pattern. People who use others eventually run out of people willing to be used. Alan laughed. "You've gotten wise in your old age." "I'm 51, I reminded him. "That's old in gym trainer years." We hung up and I went back to inventory. Roger was asleep under the counter. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows. Everything was exactly as it should be. That evening, Angela came over. We cooked together, something simple, and ate on the patio. She told me about her day. I told her about mine. It was mundane and perfect. After dinner, we sat with wine and watched the sky turn purple. "Do you ever think about her?" Angela asked. "Linda." "Sometimes," I admitted. Not in a longing way. More like checking a scar to see if it still hurts. "Does it?" "Not anymore." She smiled. "Good. That's how you know you've healed." We sat until the stars came out. Roger snored at our feet. I thought about all the miles I'd traveled, literal and metaphorical, to get to this moment. A quiet patio, good company, a dog who loved me unconditionally. This was the trip I'd been saving for. Not Maui. Not first class. Just this. Peace that didn't require pretending. In October, I got a letter. Not a legal one. Just a plain envelope with Linda's handwriting. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page. No apology. No explanation. Just 3 sentences. "I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. You deserved better." I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd feel something about it. Today wasn't that day. I had work to do, a dog to walk, a life to live. The past had already taken enough of my time. I wasn't giving it another minute. The call came on a Tuesday morning in November, 18 months after the airport. I was restocking antihistamines when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "David Chen?" A woman's voice, professional but cautious. "Speaking. This is Jennifer Caldwell. I'm a producer with a podcast called Second Chances. We cover stories about people rebuilding after major life events. I'd love to talk to you about your experience." I set down the bottle I was holding. "How did you get this number?" "Your story made an impact. We've had dozens of listeners request we reach out to you. I understand if you're not interested, but I thought I'd try." "I'm not interested," I said, polite but firm. "I understand. If you change your mind, here's my number." She rattled it off. I didn't write it down. When I hung up, Nicole looked up from the register. "Everything okay?" "Someone wants to interview me about the divorce." She wrinkled her nose. "People are weird." I agreed and went back to work. But the call stuck with me. Not because I wanted to rehash everything, but because it reminded me that the story wasn't really mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd watched the video, everyone who'd seen themselves in it, everyone who'd wished they had the courage to do something similar. That night, I told Angela about the call. We were at her place, making dinner together. She taught high school English and had strong opinions about narratives. What did you tell them? That I wasn't interested. She chopped an onion, thoughtful. Are you sure? It might be cathartic. I've already done the cathartic part. I canceled the tickets. Everything after that is just living. She smiled. Fair enough. We ate pasta and watched a documentary about penguins. Roger lay between us on the couch, his head on my lap. This was my life now. Simple, honest, mine. I didn't need to explain it to a podcast audience. But the next morning, I found myself thinking about all the messages I'd received over the past year. The man who'd stopped me on the street. The woman who'd messaged me on social media. The handful of people who'd approached me at the pharmacy, voice low, sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Maybe telling the whole story, the boring parts and the healing parts, might help someone still stuck in the phase I'd escaped. I called Jennifer back on Wednesday. I'll do the interview, I said. But I have conditions. She listened while I laid them out. No editing to make me sound vindictive. No dramatic music. No framing this as revenge porn. This is about what comes after the explosion, not the explosion itself. I can work with that, she said. We scheduled the recording for the following week. I told Alan, who thought it was a terrible idea. You're inviting people back into your business. They're already in it, I pointed out. At least this way, I control the narrative. He grudged approval. Just don't say anything that'll come back in court. Court's over, Alan. It's been over. He sighed. You're too trusting. Maybe. But I'd rather be too trusting than too afraid. The interview took place at a coffee shop in downtown Riverside. Jennifer was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with a recording setup that looked professional. She ordered us both coffee and started with easy questions. How long were you married? What do you do for work? When did you first suspect something was wrong? I answered honestly. 23 years. I own a pharmacy. I suspected for months but didn't want to believe it. Then she asked the harder questions. What went through your mind when you found the boarding passes? What made you decide to cancel at the gate instead of confronting her privately? I thought about my answer. I wanted her to feel what I felt. That moment of realizing you've been erased from your own life. I wanted witnesses so she couldn't rewrite history. Do you regret it? No. I regret the marriage ending. I regret not seeing the signs sooner. But the airport? That was the most honest thing I did in years. Jennifer nodded, making notes. Tell me about the aftermath. The divorce, the video going viral, how your life changed. I talked for 40 minutes. About the legal battle, Linda's attempts to claim victimhood, the settlement. About Roger, about Angela, about learning to live alone and liking it. About the pharmacy becoming mine again in a way it hadn't been when I was trying to keep a failing marriage afloat. What would you say to someone going through something similar right now? Jennifer asked. I leaned back, considering. Document everything. Don't act on emotion. Protect yourself financially before you protect their feelings. And understand that the people who judge you for standing up were never going to support you anyway. She smiled. That's good advice. It's expensive advice, I said. I paid for it. The podcast aired 3 weeks later. Jennifer sent me a link the night before it went live. I listened to it alone, Roger at my feet, a beer in my hand. She'd kept her word. No dramatic music, no editing to make me sound cruel. Just my voice, telling the truth. The response was immediate. My email inbox flooded with messages. Most were supportive. Some were critical. A few were from people sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking me for making them feel less alone. I read every one. I didn't respond to most, but I read them. Angela listened to the episode while grading papers. When it finished, she looked up. "You sounded good. Strong but not bitter. That's what I was going for. You hit it." The pharmacy saw a small uptick in customers over the next week. Some admitted they'd heard the podcast and wanted to meet me. Others just came in, and I suspected they were curious but too polite to say so. Either way, business was good. Mrs. Alvarez brought me more tamales. "You're famous now," she teased. "I'm the same guy who counts your pills every month." She patted my hand. "No, me Joe. You're better." In December, Linda reached out again. Not a letter this time. A text. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Angela was next to me on the couch. She glanced at my screen. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "You don't owe her anything," she said gently. "I know. But I was curious. Not about reconciliation or closure or any of the therapeutic buzzwords people throw around. I was curious about what she could possibly have to say after everything. I texted back. "Coffee. Public place. 1 hour." She agreed immediately. We met at a chain cafe near the highway. Neutral territory. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I sat across from her. "Didn't order anything." "Thank you for coming," she said. I didn't respond. Let her fill the silence. I heard the podcast. Her voice was quiet. "You were fair." I told the truth. She nodded, staring at her coffee. I wanted to explain. "There's nothing to explain, Linda. You made choices." I responded to them. "It's done." Her eyes filled. I was unhappy. So was I. The difference is I didn't book a vacation with someone else using your frequent flyer miles. She flinched. "That's fair." We sat in silence. Around us, people ordered lattes and talked about normal things. Work, weather, holiday plans. Our conversation felt like it was happening underwater. "Marcus and I didn't last," she said finally. "I know." She looked surprised. "How?" "Small town. People talk." She attempted a smile. It didn't land. "I made a lot of mistakes." "You did. Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I thought about that. Really thought. Forgiveness is complicated. It's not a switch you flip. It's not something you do for the other person. It's something you do for yourself, so their choices stop renting space in your head. "I don't think about you enough to hold a grudge," I said. "You're just someone I used to know." Her face crumpled. "That's worse than anger." "Maybe. But it's honest." She wiped her eyes with a napkin. "I'm seeing someone. A therapist. Working through things." "Good. You should. Are you happy?" The question came out raw. "I am." She nodded, accepting that. "I'm glad. You deserve it." We didn't have much to say after that. She asked about the kids. I gave brief updates. She told me she'd moved to Bakersfield, started working for a different real estate agency. We were two strangers exchanging pleasantries. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "For what it's worth, David, I am sorry." "I believe you." We walked out to the parking lot. She headed one direction. I headed another. I didn't look back. That night, Angela asked how it went. It was fine. Sad, but fine. "Do you feel better?" "I feel the same. And that's probably the point." She kissed my forehead. You're healing. I pulled her close. So are you. We'd both been through things. Bad marriages, broken trust, the kind of scars that don't show but shape how you move through the world. The difference now was we were healing together, not despite each other. Christmas came with snow, rare for Riverside. Roger loved it, bounding through the yard like a puppy. My kids came home for the holiday. Both of them. We cooked a huge dinner, exchanged gifts, told stories. Angela joined us, fitting into the chaos like she'd always been there. My daughter pulled me aside while we were doing dishes. You're different, Dad. Lighter. I feel lighter. I like her. Angela. Me too. She bumped my shoulder. Good. You deserve someone who sees you. On New Year's Eve, I closed the pharmacy early. Angela and I took Roger to the park and watched the sunset. It wasn't flashy. No fireworks, no countdowns. Just the three of us and the quiet promise of another year. At midnight, my phone buzzed with messages. My kids, Alan, a few customers, even Nicole. All of them wishing me well. I responded to each one, grateful. Angela leaned against me. What are you thinking about? How far I've come. Where are you going? I don't know yet. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. She smiled. That's the best place to start. In January, I made a decision. I'd been sitting on it for months, but the new year felt like the right time. I expanded the pharmacy. Hired 2 more techs, extended hours, added services. It was a risk, but calculated. I'd spent too long playing it safe. The expansion paid off. By March, we were busier than ever. I started taking Mondays off too. Roger and I explored new trails. Angela and I took weekend trips. I bought a kayak, something I'd always wanted but never justified. Life wasn't perfect. I still had hard days. Moments where I wondered if I'd done the right thing, if the public humiliation had been necessary, if I could have handled it differently. But those moments got shorter. The good days outnumbered them now. In April, the one who'd made the video from the airport reached out. He wanted to do a follow-up. Where are you now, that kind of thing. I agreed. Not because I needed the attention, but because I wanted people to see the after. The healing, the rebuilding, the ordinary joy of a life reclaimed. The follow-up video was simpler than the first. Just me talking about the pharmacy, Roger, Angela, the kids. No drama, no revenge. Just a man who'd been knocked down and got back up. The comments were different this time. Less about justice, more about hope. People thanked me for showing that life goes on. That betrayal doesn't have to define you. That sometimes the best revenge is building something better. In June, I proposed to Angela. Nothing fancy. We were hiking with Roger, reached a clearing with a view of the valley, and I asked her. She cried and said yes. We set a date for the following spring. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. No drama, no social media. Just 2 people who'd been through hell choosing to build something together. My kids flew home for the engagement party. Alan gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Mrs. Alvarez brought enough food to feed the entire block. Roger wore a bow tie and stole the show. Standing in my backyard, surrounded by people I loved, I thought about where I'd been 2 years ago. Hiding in the hydrangeas, watching my marriage disintegrate, planning an airport ambush that would change everything. I didn't regret it. But I also didn't define myself by it anymore. That was a chapter, not the whole book. Angela found me by the grill. You okay? Perfect. She kissed me, soft and easy. This is nice. It is. We stayed outside until the stars came out. Roger chased fireflies. Music drifted from the speakers. Someone laughed, loud and genuine. This was what I'd been saving the miles for. Not Maui. Not first class. This. Connection, honesty, people who showed up. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd found myself. And in the end, that was the better deal. The pharmacy thrived. My relationship thrived. I thrived. Not because I'd gotten revenge, but because I'd stopped settling for less than I deserved. People still recognized me sometimes. The guy from the video. I'd smile, nod, and move on. That story was behind me. I was writing new ones now. Better ones. True ones. Mine. The wedding took place on a Saturday in May, under a sky so blue it looked painted. We kept it simple. 40 people in Angela's parents' backyard, string lights wrapped around oak trees, folding chairs that didn't match. Roger served as ring bearer, which meant he walked halfway down the aisle before getting distracted by a squirrel. Everyone laughed. Including me. Especially me. Angela wore a cream dress, nothing elaborate, just something that made her eyes shine. I wore a navy suit I'd bought specifically for this, not recycled from my previous life. Everything about this day was new, intentional, chosen. My son stood next to me as best man. My daughter read a poem she'd written. Alan officiated, cracking jokes that landed somewhere between inappropriate and perfect. When he asked if anyone objected, he paused dramatically and added, "And I mean it this time, because last wedding I did, someone actually stood up." The crowd roared. I shook my head, grinning. Angela squeezed my hand. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. Nothing flowery, just promises we knew we could keep. I vowed to never let routine replace attention. She vowed to always say what she meant. We both vowed to choose each other every single day, not just once. When Alan pronounced us married, the applause felt earned. Not performative, not obligatory. Real. The reception was potluck style. Mrs. Alvarez brought tamales, naturally. Nicole brought a cake she'd decorated herself. Brian, my pharmacy tech, brought his guitar and played through dinner. It wasn't fancy. It was ours. During the toasts, my daughter stood up. She looked at me with eyes that had seen me at my worst and stuck around anyway. "My dad taught me something important," she said. "He taught me that love shouldn't shrink you. It should give you room to grow." Her voice cracked. And watching him find that with Angela reminds me that it's never too late to start over. I couldn't speak for a solid minute after that. Just held Angela's hand and let the gratitude wash over me. My son kept his toast shorter. Dad canceled a flight and broke the internet. Now he's married to someone who actually deserves him. Character development at its finest. More laughter. More tears. Alan wrapped up the toasts by raising his glass. To second chances and people brave enough to take them. We danced as the sun set. Not well, but enthusiastically. Roger barked at the music. Kids ran through the yard. Older folks sat in clusters, trading stories. It felt like every good backyard party I'd ever been to, except this one was mine. Around 9, Angela and I snuck away to the front porch. We could still hear the music, still see the lights, but we had a moment of quiet. "How you doing?" she asked. "Honestly? I keep waiting for something to go wrong." She laughed. "Nothing's going wrong. This is just what happy looks like." I pulled her close. "I'm not used to it yet." "You will be." We stayed there until someone came looking for us, pulled back into the celebration. We cut the cake, threw the bouquet, said goodbye to guests who hugged us like family because, in many cases, they were. My kids left late, both of them lingering at the door like they had when they were small and didn't want bedtime. "You good, Dad?" my son asked. "Better than good." My daughter hugged me tight. "I'm really proud of you." "Right back at you, kiddo." After everyone left, Angela and I collapsed on the couch. Roger immediately claimed the space between us. The house was a mess. Dishes everywhere, decorations half taken down, a shoe someone had left behind. "We should clean," Angela said without moving. "We should." Neither of us moved. This was perfect, she said finally. It really was. We fell asleep there, Roger snoring between us, the porch light still on, the world exactly as it should be. The honeymoon was just a long weekend in San Diego. We stayed at a small hotel near the beach, ate too much seafood, and walked Roger along the shore every morning. No agenda, no itinerary. Just time. One afternoon, we were sitting on the sand watching the waves when Angela turned to me. Do you ever think about her? I knew who she meant. Sometimes. Not the way I used to. What's different? Before, thinking about Linda felt like pressing on a bruise. Now it's just a fact. She existed. We were married. It ended. None of that changes this. Angela nodded, satisfied. Good. A kid ran past chasing a kite. Roger watched, tail wagging, but didn't chase. He'd learned some restraint. So had I. I'm glad you called that producer back, Angela said. The podcast, I mean. I think telling your story helped people. It helped me too. Putting it all into words made it real. Not the video, not the airport. But the whole thing. The before, the during, the after. You're good at that. Making sense of chaos. I'm a pharmacist. It's literally my job. She laughed, that full sound I'd fallen in love with. Fair point. We stayed until the sun started setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Roger fell asleep with his head on my foot. Angela leaned against my shoulder. I thought about all the miles that had led me here. Not the ones I'd earned in planes, but the ones I'd walked through pain, doubt, anger, and finally, acceptance. The boarding passes that started everything were long gone. Probably in a landfill somewhere, their purpose served. They'd been proof of betrayal, but also proof that I could act, that I could choose myself, that I deserved better. I'd gotten better. Not perfect, but real. Angela was real. Roger was real. The pharmacy, my kids, this moment on the beach, all of it was real in a way my previous life had stopped being years before I'd admitted it. Ready to head back? Angela asked as the sun touched the horizon. Yeah. Let's go home. Home. That word meant something different now. Not a place I was avoiding or enduring, but a place I'd built with intention. A place where I was seen, valued. Chosen. We walked back to the hotel, Roger trotting ahead, the ocean singing behind us. Tomorrow we'd drive back to Riverside. Back to work, routines, the ordinary rhythm of a shared life. But tonight, we ordered room service and watched a movie we'd both seen before. Roger claimed half the bed. Angela fell asleep during the credits. I stayed awake a little longer, listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of the dog against my legs, the hum of the AC, the sounds of a life I'd fought to reclaim. I thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago. Hiding in bushes, clutching boarding passes, planning revenge. He'd been right to act. But he'd also been broken, desperate, lost. I wasn't that man anymore. I was someone who'd walked through fire and come out holding something worth keeping. Not anger, not bitterness, but clarity. The kind that only comes when you stop pretending and start living. Angela stirred, mumbled something in her sleep. I kissed her forehead and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, its own joys. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. Not in first class to Maui. Here. In a dog-friendly hotel room in San Diego, married to someone who knew my worst and chose my best. The miles had brought me here. All of them. The ones I'd earned, the ones I'd lost, the ones I'd reclaimed. And every single one had been worth it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.